So let's talk about feed and water intake in our sows now. So again, it's very important that this sow has full access to as much feed as she'll comfortably eat and as much water as she'll comfortably drink. Now again, we want to try to evaluate what is the right amount of feed, what is the right amount of water for the sow. So again, we want to start, the first step is what is our feed delivery system for the sows? Are we doing a hand feeding system where we're feeding the animals 2, 3, 4 times a day? Or are we doing an automatic delivery system where we either have a drop or continuous feeding once the animals are up on full feed? Again, there are 2 different philosophies in the industry right now on what is the best feeding practice. But again, it's ultimately going to boil down to you and your operation, what your farm crew is capable of doing, what you're able to handle from a labor standpoint, and what the genetics that you're feeding in the barn is capable of working with as well. It's very important that the sow has full access to fresh feed as much as possible. We don't want to see those feeders being licked completely clean. Whether you're doing a full feeding system or a hand feeding system, a bunk management, making sure that feeder isn't overflowing with feed, isn't full of musty and dirty and moldy feed, but also isn't licked completely clean, and finding that happy medium is ultimately what we need to be delivering to the sow. As far as how much that sow should be consuming, again, it's going to vary a little bit from genetic to genetic, farm to farm, but as a basic rule, we want to think about what her metabolic needs are and how much she's trying to produce for those pigs. Again, our industry, we're seeing 10 to 12 or more pigs that are nursing on an individual sow. Now, we're taking that pig from about 2 to 3 pounds to about 12 to 13 pounds during the course of an approximately 20-day lactation. That's about a half a pound a day. So again, just sheer, if we were doing a 1-to-1 ratio, that's a half a pound for every single pig that's in that litter. That could be up to 6 pounds of milk that those piglets themselves need to consume to put on that weight. We need to add that on top of the sow's own metabolic demand of approximately 5 pounds of feed to maintain her adequate body condition. That means over the course of a lactation period, that sow should be consuming an average of at least 11 pounds of feed per day. Now again, that is going to ramp up over time from start to finish, and ultimately it's going to be the sows that tell you what is the proper feeding curve. And again, we really want to watch that sow's body condition. We want to make sure that over the course of the lactation from start to finish, she's not losing a lot of body condition during the course of the time. We want to make sure that we're not developing a lot of shoulder sores. We want to make sure that we're not seeing that sow get very thin. And so again, if you see a lot of sows, if you see a sufficient percentage of your sows starting to get thin, it might be time to go and reevaluate. First off, are we giving her enough feed? And second, have we actually done a feed weight to actually see if the caloric density of our feed is sufficient with our volumetric feed drop or feed scoop for the delivery system that we're giving to that sow. The next piece is water. We want to make sure that she has continuous access to good, fresh, clean water that's at a good water flow. As a general rule of thumb, for every pound of feed that the sow is consuming, she should be drinking about a half gallon of water. And so that's going to be a lot of water that sow needs to consume as well. That water also needs to be delivered in a timely manner, as that sow will eventually lose patience and stop drinking after a certain amount of time. Another rule of thumb that we want to bear in mind is that the flow rate, on whether it's in a nipple or in a cup or however, that sow has access to at least a half gallon of water per minute, 2 quarts per minute, or about 1 pint every 15 seconds. That's going to be a sufficient flow rate for the sow. We want to make sure that water's clean, we want to make sure that it's in front of her, and we want to make sure that there's no impedance to that water being delivered to her, that the lines are clear, that there's no crusting or buildup in the lines that might restrict that water flow for getting to the animal.